Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for an MP webinar covering your 2022 Benefits Package Secret Weapon, Estate Planning. I'm Katie Kreider, Marketing Specialist here at MP. For those of you joining us on a webinar for the first time, MP is a full-service human capital management company. We offer a complete suite of products and services to support organizations through the entire employee lifecycle, including HR, payroll, benefits administration, time and attendance, and compliance assistance. We support our clients with cutting-edge technical solutions, as well as proactive, reliable service and deep HR and payroll expertise. At MP, we are wired for HR and help our clients succeed by aligning their people strategy with their business goals. I'm excited to introduce your presenters for today's program, Renee Fry and Skyler Samp. Renee is the co-founder and CEO of Gentrio, an online software provider with a mission to provide affordable, accessible, and easy-to-use estate planning tools for everyone. Renee has led and helped start multiple companies, served in the Massachusetts government cabinet as head of business and technology, and is a graduate of Harvard Business School. Skyler is the general counsel for Gentrio. Skyler has successfully litigated high-profile corporate disputes and recently founded and runs a law firm that helps guide fast-growing startup companies. He has also handled thousands of cases in a variety of fields, such as estate planning and family law. Skyler is a graduate of the Michelin-Hamlin School of Law and was admitted to the federal and California State Bar in 2012. Founded in 2018, Gentrio is an online estate planning platform that makes estate planning affordable and accessible to all. Based in Boston, Gentrio was created by sisters Renee and Julie Fry, with the mission of helping families protect what matters most to them. Through Gentrio, users of all service tiers can create state-specific documents and securely store and share their documents. What's more, Gentrio offers a suite of extras, such as estate planning coaching, onboarding guidance, legal reviews, and funeral planning. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started here today. If you would like to submit a question during the program, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We will be sending out the recording of the webinar later today along with the slides. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic off to Renee.
Great, and thank you, much appreciated. So it's nice to get to be here today. So let's see, can we, yeah. So this is all about educational and informational purposes. And definitely, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll make sure that we really try to help everyone learn a lot today. And so this is not legal advice or anything like that, but we'll make sure that we help you try to answer any questions that you have that we can. So today, what we wanted to talk about is estate planning and how it can be that secret weapon, and how today with everyone going through COVID and family struggles and so many different things, that why estate planning isn't what people thought about in the past, or it's not just for the wealthy and it's not just one and done, but also making sure how it becomes a tool that helps employees throughout their lives. And it's something that helps with employee retention as well, because it's a pretty inexpensive benefit that is there for people throughout their lives when they need help the most. And especially now, again, this is where, I don't know, 2/3 of our staff over Christmas had COVID. So I'm pretty sure everybody's still dealing with lots of folks not knowing what they need to know. And really, when we're attracting talent, this is something that everyone needs, no matter if they're young or old. It's something everyone needs, but especially those who have experience. They most likely have a family. They might be folks like many of us. The name Gentrio means 3 generations. And so a lot of folks might be like myself, where my dad just passed away last year from Alzheimer's, the same time my grandmother passed away from COVID, and I have a 10-year-old son. And so it's one of those things where we have lots of generations to think about and care for. And so especially some of those more experienced, established professionals that you're looking to hire, this might be something that would be really helpful to them. So I mentioned COVID, but I really want to make sure that people understand something where estate planning is something where it includes your healthcare proxy. That's medical decisions. So if you don't have a healthcare proxy, your family can't make your decisions. And so anybody over 18 needs something like that. But then also too, from the financial perspective, it's something where it's not just estate planning is your will, but it's also things like the power of attorney and making sure that you can help make financial decisions for those that you care for, or even a spouse, something like that. But it's something that a lot of folks have questions about. And so one of the things that we found is that you really need to make sure that resources are available, because when people have questions, you can Google anything all day long and find 27 different answers. But when people have questions and it's their family, you want to make sure they're getting the right answers.
Yeah, and estate planning can be critical not just for employers, but for employees. It's they play off of each other. I think most employers would know that when an employee is distracted, they're not going to be as productive. And as you touched on, Renee, in these tough times, it's even more prevalent than ever that individuals are affected and can be distracted, and that reduces productivity. Whether it's themselves, a loved one, a friend, if when you go through, these kind of issues where they're medical issues, etc., there's going to be a lot of turmoil for that individual. And unless you can reduce that, and a good estate plan can help reduce that stress for employees, and that's only going to, swing back and help the employer. So what is estate planning? And that's something, a lot of people don't really think about until they're older, up until now. I think that's changing quite a bit. And it can be kind of daunting. Most people have heard of a will or a trust, and they think, oh, that's what old people have. And, when they die, that helps them, escape having to go through probate, tells everyone what, who gets what in their estate. But unfortunately, people need to be educated that it's a lot more than that. And if you can provide an employee with the knowledge and the perks of all of the, it's a well-rounded set of legal documents. So first and foremost, state specific, being able to provide your employees with their state specific documents is important. And that can be complex and daunting. But if you can simplify that for them, that's a great perk. A couple of the other major legal documents, you've got legally binding power of attorney, you've got a healthcare proxy, which we touched on, a will, living trust, an emergency card, which can be very important. If you've got health issues, etc., that's something where if a loved one can look that up and provide a medical professional with that almost instantaneously, that's a very important legal document. It can go to a pet trust, pet power of attorney, and a pet information sheet. That's not something that typically somebody thinks about when they think of estate planning, but there's a benefit there. And if
because people love their pets sometimes more than their family, or pets are part of the family, right? Yeah. So.
I mean, I've dealt with cases where that's been the case. I mean, and it's something where, if you can show an employee or a potential prospective employee that there's all of these different benefits involved in estate planning, that could mean a lot. It should mean a lot. And estate planning is more than just documents. It's more than just these boring legal documents that help get what you want. You can provide a great benefit to an individual by, doing stuff like a funeral planning toolkit, memorial videos. Back in the day, you would just write a letter to loved ones, and that's hopefully they find it, and that's what you get. But now you can, estate planning can help provide high production memorial videos, and family support. Estate planning is now not just something that you do behind closed doors. You can involve really any loved one, friend, family, etc., in the process, and let them be privy to it and give them easy access to it if needed. Which kind of brings my point to the fact that it gives an individual a digital home to turn to. They can securely store very important documents instead of having to go to, a bank lockbox or a safe or, a hidden, cabinet. They now can instantaneously store securely documents via their phone or computer from anywhere in the world. And that provides a great benefit. And which I will touch on a little bit later, it's always up to date. If you can provide an estate plan that continuously stays up to date with the changing laws, et cetera, you're providing a great service, because once again, historically, people would create a will or a trust, and unless they wanted to change it, they wouldn't want to have to pay an attorney to go back and revise it continuously. That's expensive. So being able to provide an estate plan that allows for change, that allows for updates without the extra expense of that, provides a real value. So once again, isn't estate planning one and done? The answer is no. And this is what I was just touching on. The value of a comprehensive estate plan where an individual has easy access to it, can go back to it daily if they want, can go back to it 10 years from now if they want, is really valuable. The fact that you don't have to continuously hire an individual to revise, what was the law when you created this, and how has the law changed, and how does that law changing pertain to the documents as they were created. When you have an online, let's say, as comprehensive estate plan, and the laws change, those individuals can be notified of those laws. And when they sign in, they can see, what changes they may need to make or what things they need to update. And that's a real value. And knowing that you can do that daily or yearly it provides just constant value to an individual. And people's lives change, as we know. And there are ups, there are downs, there are uncertainties. And in those periods of change, it's nice to know that you can instantaneously go back and very easily adjust your estate plan. So the value in that is incomprehensible. And it really just kind of provides kind of a comfort for individuals knowing that they can do that.
Yeah. So from a benefit package standpoint, we know that recruiting and retaining talent, it's something that is a real challenge right now, because there are so many job postings and people are looking for their next opportunity. And so one of the things that may not be that you can keep increasing salaries, but you can do a lot with benefit packages. And so with benefit packages, that's a differentiator. And this is where, from an estate planning perspective, being able to provide benefits that in the past would have cost someone $10,000, but now, like, we only charge $25 per year for someone. But it's something that now you can provide a very affordable benefit that stays with folks as long as they want it to. And this is something where, from a secret weapon standpoint, putting in packages like these, saying, hey, what if we can help you care for not only yourself, but your family, your loved ones, if you're caring for aging parents, or you have a child that's going off to college, let us help you with that too. That's a huge benefit to folks, because right now, in this very busy world we live in, we all don't live next door anymore. I live now 5 states away from my parents, my mom. And so it's one of those things where really making sure that benefit packages include all kinds of things now that are not necessarily the monetary side, but benefits that show you as an employer care are, I think, something that's critical. So one of the stories that we recently had, and I will say, just an aside, people, I think, sometimes think we must be robots because they send us very interesting stories that some we cannot repeat. But one good story that I can share is there was a woman named Jenna who she worked at a company in Iowa that the Gentrio serves as a benefit. And her father lives in Florida, and he was about to have surgery. And so he wanted her to fly down to Florida because he needed an updated healthcare proxy, because one of the things the hospital said was, before you go into surgery, you need to tell us who you want in charge of making decisions if you can't make those decisions. And his last healthcare proxy did was outdated, because they need to be updated about every 2 years. But it was outdated, and it named his now ex-wife as the decision maker. And so when we were on the phone with us, he told us in no uncertain terms that the ex-wife was going to pull the plug. She would find creative ways to make sure he didn't come out of the surgery. And we kept telling him, it's okay. Jenna doesn't have to fly down to Florida. Here's the document. This is what it takes. Get this done. And so it took them all of like 10, 15 minutes to get the document done, get the healthcare proxy done, have him know that now his daughter, Jenna, was in charge of all of his decisions. And she didn't have to fly down to Florida from Iowa. So she saved a bunch of money. And just the relief from both of them was something that was really exceptional. And we just want to share that story because too many people think, again, that estate planning is just when someone dies and things like that. But it's actually real life events that are happening all the time, whether it's a simple, you think it's a simple surgery, or it's something just making sure that your parents, their employer's parents, are making sure that they have the right decisions and things covered as well. But Jenna, I can tell you, is still she's still a Gentrio user, as is her father, because they know that they need to update their documents, and they use the digital vault to be able to share their documents and important information, because now he's on about 8 medications and keeps those up to date too, because he wants to make sure that Jenna has all of that too. So it's a good story.
4 ways estate planning can improve employee retention. The first is everyone wants peace of mind in these uncertain times. And if an employer can provide that, that's a great value. Number 2, it's a modern universal benefit. There's really no way to I don't know anyone out there that would state that an estate plan is a bad thing. It used to be something where people think only old people or extremely wealthy need, but it's becoming more and more common and prevalent that people need it. And it's a lifelong benefit. It's not something that, that they'll see only while they're employed by you. They'll use this estate plan for the rest of their lives, and they should see the benefit there. And it also helps with financial health and emergency planning. So those 3 things are extremely helpful to the individual, and they should see value in that. And even if they don't, it's something where the employer should feel good about providing. And as I stated earlier, when an individual feels secure with their financial health and emergency planning, they should feel more comfort, less distracted, et cetera. And that should provide a benefit for the employer as well. Now, Renee, I don't want to skip back to that story that you were just telling, but there are documents in estate planning where I've heard wild stories where, people were absolutely saved by documents such as this. I know an individual who had a pet trust, and what they were allowed to do is allow a caretaker for their pet while they would go on vacation. Most people don't really think about that. Like, they hire somebody to watch a dog or get a family friend to watch their dog. But if the dog gets sick and has to go to the vet, how do you deal with that situation? How do you?
Okay, so can I tell my story on that one?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, this was the pet power of attorney one. So a friend of mine is a Navy SEAL, and he was on a mission, and unfortunately his dog's stomach flipped, and the vet would not do the surgery because it was about an $8,000 surgery to save the dog. And so he wasn't married to his girlfriend at the time, and they wouldn't let her do it. And so they actually had to find him in the mountains of a secret country that cannot be named. And the guys still kind of make fun of him today, and they walk by and say "woof" because they know that he wanted to save his dog and do whatever it could, but he didn't have a pet power of attorney in place. And so this is where people are like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard of these things. Well, they're very real. And so when people are living through these emergency situations, if you don't have these documents, it makes life really hard.
Absolutely. And that's my whole point. The intricacy of the value that you can provide an employee with an estate plan is quite extensive. I mean, you can, with just the focusing on a pet power of attorney, you can determine who has the decision to make, who has the right to make decisions for that pet, and how long, what period of time do they have that power? And, what's the discretion of that power? Can it go up to $2,000, up to $10,000? And for an individual to know that they have that much more control over the safety and well-being of their pet or a family member or wherever, that provides immense value. And I would also add a number 5 to the employee retention is it provides a resource for these employees, a kind of a learning tool if need be, so they can actually understand estate planning. And if they understand it, I mean, that provides an immense value to that individual. They don't want to have to go out and do legal research. They don't want to have to go out and search the internet and maybe get false information. If you go to an online estate planning resource, they will just straightforward knowledge, very easy for you. And that the value of that is immense. Why employees want benefits like estate planning, especially now? I mean, when I look at these numbers, I think they're extremely substantial. 33% say that COVID caused a greater need for an estate plan. I mean, that is a drastic change. That is something that's happening in our world right now that's making people think about their own mortality, think about their loved ones, think about the mortality of their parents or grandparents or children. And although it's a sad prospect, people are taking initiative and think that that's, at least at this point in time, that what the world's going through is propelling people towards the idea of needing an estate plan. Now, the next one, this one is the biggest one for me. 63% of increase in adults from ages 18 to 34 who had a will in 2021 to 2020. That is wild to me, because most people, you don't think of most young people 18 to 34 as having a will, and that's a substantial increase. So the value of having an estate plan is only just growing immensely year in and year out. Now, once again, once they have that will, they're going to be utilizing and changing and altering it for the rest of their life. So they're going to see immense value, hopefully for a very long time. And finally, 46% have a will to protect who cares for their children or get assets after they pass. Once again, I think that this number is only going to increase in time. I think as it becomes easier to create and more affordable to create, more and more people are going to say, why not do this? And once they do it, they're going to understand the concept of estate planning better, and they're going to utilize it a lot more. So the value is just going to increase immensely. And as we stated prior, we all need healthcare proxies. I mean, that's something that should be standard issue, and most people I know don't have them. They can save a person's life, and I think anyone could easily create one online, and it's a no-brainer. And finally, providing estate plans can attract more experienced, established talent. Helping employees through life changes is important. If you can provide that value especially at an affordable price, it's a no-brainer. You can provide employees with peace of mind, as we stated before. But a big one is the no waiting period for new employees. With dental or medical, you may have to work with a company for X amount of time. You may have to wait for an enrollment window. To be able to tell a new employee, hey, like day one working here, you will have access to an entire, estate plan, software or something. That's great. And that's, very enticing, I would think, for a lot of people. Now, we went through what some people call the Great Resignation, where a lot of younger employees throughout our nation decided that it just wasn't worth it to work. And a lot of companies had to try and hire, older employees who are willing to do the job. And as we kind of stated many times throughout this, the older the individual, the more that they're going to be intrigued or enticed by the estate planning process. So although we showed numbers that, the younger crowd is starting to become more and more keen on estate planning, it's still fair to say that the older the individual, the more experienced the individual, the more enticed they will be by the prospect of estate planning. And finally, from more experienced to younger individuals, this is a benefit that's going to last for someone's entire life. So you can tell a younger employee or a younger employee prospect, hey, once you have an estate plan, this is something that you're going to be able to go back to day in, day out, year in, year out. It's going to help you throughout the rest of your life in many different facets of your life, from powers attorneys to pet trusts to there's a vast array of legal documents that they'll help you create. They'll help you update, and that provides a lot of value for many years to come.
Yeah, and one of the things we deal a lot with too are life inflection points. When you have a baby, if you get married, get divorced, lose a parent, has a first fall, typically move to a new state. Those are times when we typically see that we get to help a lot of folks too, because it's during those life inflection points that people know they need to update documents, create documents, and really make sure that they're protecting all they love. So just a few things here, and then we want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So it's a very high value and, something that people know is there for them. One of the things that I think from our perspective, having that button that you can hit when an emergency happens saves huge amounts of time. So now if someone does need their healthcare proxy, medication list, doctor's information, that's something that now with technology is available, and something that people in the past haven't had access to, and we're carting around little pieces of paper or, and I'm turning in my mother here, where she would always have this little piece of paper with medication lists and doctors, and oh my goodness, it was always lost. And we're like, hit the button, mom. And so this is where also too, I think in the past, there were legal services that folks could buy on a monthly basis, but those tended to be things that people would sign up for, and 4 years later realize, oh, I've been paying $25 a month and I've never realized why, or I haven't used those services. So this is something where the majority of folks were using the estate planning platform, and the estate planning really does deserve its own kind of corridor section, because it is so detailed, and you need to make sure you have those details to make everything effective. And so from saving time, money, instead of having to deal with lawyers and legal and things like that, being able to provide tools that folks can do on their own time, and really making sure that they have the peace of mind knowing that they are protected is, I think, it's been a great benefit. And when we've gone back and talked with folks, at least from our perspective, we know that the stories they tell us, it can make a huge difference. And then also, I think from Jenna's story, but we have other tales also, but really helping people know that they are protected. And so from a work performance standpoint, being able to keep people there, knowing that they can reach out to the coaches and people who have experience, and being able to help people make the right decisions at the right time is something that's huge. I worked for a woman once who we would spend 2 or 3 hours a day in her office talking about her, unfortunately, her sick mother, and she didn't have anything protected. She didn't have anything right. And she had no idea what to do. And we really would sit there for 2 hours a day. And I'd be like, can I go do my work? But she felt like she needed someone to talk to. So I actually got to know her father well too. So these are real stories. And it is something that if we can do more to prevent these type of situations, there's a lot we can do in saving time and then money as well. So we wanted to open it up to Q&A, and feel free to, I think we can put them in the chat, right? Or raise your hand. And again, we are really fun at dinner parties, right, Skyler? So, yeah. Skyler might be more fun at dinner parties than I am. So I have a 10-year-old who walks around talking about estate planning, asking people if they've done this, because it's a very scary time in the world. And it's like, okay, buddy, you're 10. We can calm down. You don't need to be scared for all of us. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's, for somebody slightly younger, like growing up, I haven't had one conversation with an individual about wills or trusts, etc., up until the last year or two. And it's amazing how many times I've either, somebody's broached the topic with me, both either asking for advice or, I hear a lot of unfortunate stories. Like, I can't express enough to friends and family how, excuse me, how important it is to not, let a loved one go through, the process of having a family member be deceased and then not having a will or trust in place, or not being able to find their will or trust, or fighting with siblings over what that will and trust truly means. And I always tell them, try your best to get to an online estate plan, because that will eliminate questions. It's amazing, as an attorney, how many times I've dealt with cases where you don't know when a will was signed. You don't know whether, the person who signed it was in the right state of mind, etc. When you have an online estate plan, it can help rectify a lot of those issues. A lot of these changes to the wills are time-stamped. If the person can sign into it and do it on their own accord, there's evidence that they have the mental awareness to do it. There's a lot of different things that it'll save a lot of stress, time, and money. And it just the benefit.
You won't have those heartache stories, right? That we get.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, losing a loved one is hard enough, but the legal battles that can follow if you don't have a defined estate plan, I mean, those are hard.
So there's inexpensive. So we had 2 questions. So I think maybe I'll go in backwards order. So Christine asked if we could do demos to potential clients to see how the WITH system works. Yeah, definitely. So definitely show people how the system works, and even send some codes so people can try things out. But one of the things that we're very proud of is making sure that people really get a chance to get in and kick the tires and understand what options they have in creating their documents, trying out Gentrio coaches for when people are either having questions or going through things. So just let us know, and I'll put my email in the chat. And then Skyler, maybe you can tackle this one for Antonio. He said he has a lot of assets and like properties and cars, and he wonders if what he needs to do to ensure everything is transferred to his wife or children should something happen. And what's the ideal approach? Is it a living will? Is it a full-on estate plan? And where should he start?
Sure. Now, I'll start with the disclaimer that although I'm an attorney, please don't take anything that I say as direct legal advice. Think of this more as general legal advice. But the correct answer is it depends. There are a lot of legal documents in estate planning that can help do exactly what you want to do, and that's the beauty of it. When you create a legal document, it helps you determine exactly what you specifically want to do. Now, if you have a lot of assets like properties, cars, etc., you typically want a will and a trust. Okay. If you don't have a will or a trust, typically in your state, everything falls into what's called probate. And probate is, for an attorney, the no-no zone. It's you let the government handle it. And the government will go through your state's legal process as to where those assets go. They could go to, your wife first, typically, then your children, then their children, then your parents, then a sibling. And for it to get to all of those individuals exactly the way a state wants, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money, and it's very frustrating. Now, if you have a will is going to let you determine what happens, with those assets when you die. Now, if you create a trust then takes that will and says, oh, we will disperse it, not the state. Okay, so having both is usually key. And the beauty of it is you can have a living will. And a living will is a living trust. And a living trust is something you could have major benefits to while you're alive. You can transfer titles out of your name so that creditors can't go after it. And you can still reap the benefits of living on a residence that's not in your name and knowing that there's potential tax benefits, and your wife or children or whoever you want to get it is going to be insured to receive that. And the beauty of a lot of the online estate planning, especially with Gentrio, is when you go onto their websites, they explain these things to you. They explain the perks of having a will or a trust, and they help walk you through it. Who do you want to have receive this? What you can create what's called a class. And the classes could be your children, could be your grandchildren, but it walks you through step by step and explains to you each concept and what exactly you're doing. And it will help you list your assets, your cars, your real estate, bank accounts, everything as specifically as you want to get. It'll help walk you through it. And, it's very straightforward. It's kind of like the concept of like a TurboTax. Most people are daunted by the idea of doing their taxes, but now it's pretty commonplace for somebody to go online, be walked through the process, and feel very comfortable with the process, whether or not they know the tax code. And that's kind of what, something like a Gentrio does, is it helps you walk through the concepts. It's pretty straightforward. So yeah, a lot of the time you don't need an attorney, but they also have online resources and coaches that will help, explain certain concepts to you as well.
You get Skyler, right?
Yeah,
so, and
exactly.
so Christine, you just asked, is it $25 per year per employee? Yep, with Gentrio it is. Yeah, if you buy the seat license for your employees, it's $25 per person per year, and that gives them all the Gentrios. They can create any of the documents, all of them, any or all. So everything from the healthcare proxy to the power of attorney to the will to the living trust. And then you get to save all of that and share that in your digital vault. And then you get to pick and choose by which piece of information or document you'd like to share with it. But it is only $25 per year per employee. And one question that's often asked too is that if employees have already done estate planning, can they still use, this is pertinent to Gentrio, but yep, definitely. Because what we encourage people to do is upload their documents into their digital vault and give people access to the documents that have been created, because one of our folks on our team, Chris, they almost lost a $50,000 life insurance policy because their mother had hidden it in her sock drawer so no one could find it. And she was almost successful with not making sure they didn't find it, but they found it as they were cleaning out her things. So Christine, It's by head count for the $25 for Gen Trio. And then if it's only for those who participate, it's $85 per year. If it's only for those who participate, and that can be paid by the person who wants to participate for the $85 or the company. And but we have a couple different models that work because, again, we just want to make sure this is affordable for people, because having lived through this, when, again, my parents having paying $10,000, or just so many sad stories that we get from folks who don't have the documents. They have lots of questions. They've gotten really bad, like, Google, you can Google anything out there and get crazy answers to things. And so we really wanted to make sure that people have the tools to make sure that they can protect their loved ones. And then all they've worked for hard as well. Like, there was this crazy statistic that we just learned that if you don't have all these documents and things like this done, you lose 3 to 8% of your assets in probate. So between legal fees and lawyer fee and court costs, your assets, you lose all 3 to 8%. And so one of our board members, he wrote an article today about how he had to learn all of this, and it's a little bit the hard way too, because he's a second generation African American man who his family just hadn't thought about anything like this before. And so they got taken advantage of by lawyers and folks that really weren't out for their best interest. So why we try to make it as affordable is we want to make sure that we can help everybody. And there's never any upcharges or anything like that. The only thing that anybody might get charged for it is if they do want to talk to an outside lawyer, just to make sure they feel like they've done everything right. We have lawyers across 50 states that will help people. It's $250, but 97% of the people never need that attorney. That's just in case they want to have that extra blessing. And then Claudia just asked, does it have to be payroll deducted or it can be direct pay? Either way, we do both for Gen Trio.
Yeah, and Renee, touching on the value of the paying an attorney a flat fee to review. Typically in the legal world, a lot of your costs are having attorneys drafting, having them draft documents, having them revise documents, having them do legal research for you. An attorney can charge way more than $10,000 to do those things for you. But if you just simply want to have an attorney review for a flat fee of $250, that's unreal. That is, I mean, the benefit there is exponential.
Yeah, and again, most people don't need that. They don't have, but it's one of those things that you just in our back pocket. It's something that we, again, just want to make sure people feel like they're being taken care of, that everything is secure. And again, we went over the COVID numbers and why people are feeling the need for this, but it really, in a time of uncertainty, having things that really can make sure you're protected, it's a fantastic benefit, because just the questions that people have that in the past that just never got answered, kind of that's been when we do webinars. So like if a company buys Gen Trio, one of the things we do is we do webinars for the companies throughout the year if that's something they ask for, and those are free. But during the webinars, lots of the questions come out, and this is where people have kind of either been afraid to ask this, or sometimes they just have wrong information. So Skyler does a number of those videos for the companies, as well as when people are first getting started, and then mid-year checkups. And then one of the things that we do for folks too is an annual review, making sure they have all their documents, see if anything has changed in their lives. But also if they, the employers would like to, like just having Skyler or some of our other lawyers do the session with them to not give legal advice, but make sure people are asking themselves the right questions and putting it into the correct context. Again, this is where we're fun at dinner parties. We're like, do you have a will? Is it updated? So anybody else have any questions? Or and don't underestimate the pet thing too, because I know I made Skyler focus on that more, but this is kind of how pet insurance has become a good benefit. But some of the things there, when I can tell you from the webinars, when we get going and people have questions about, who's going to get their pet if they pass away, because it's some insane number, right, Skyler, about how many pets go to shelters and their pet put down if people don't. I mean, it's just really sad. So what we try to do is help people take the prevent defense. I'll use a football term there, prevent defense, and make sure those sad stories don't happen.
Yeah. And, Yeah, you touched on it earlier in the presentation, but I do think it's important. You talked about inflection points, right? Times when people would need to potentially revise or change their estate plan. You touched on moving out of state, but if you really think about it, if a loved one or yourself falls ill, if you have a child, if somebody passes away, if your assets change. I mean, that could be every day of your life, and each time that happens, you should be going back and at least reviewing your estate plan and looking to see if whether or not it needs to be changed. And that's just, most people can't do that if they've just got a pen and paper or an ink, estate plan. It's too expensive, it's too time consuming, it's too stressful for them to do that.
So Christine had a question for employees who take service. Can they take it with them if they leave the employer? They can. Yep. So two different things. One, they get ample time to make sure if they want to sign up later as an individual, they can. They get it for the year the employer paid for, and then no matter what, one of the things we try to make sure too is that you can print out any of your documents at any time before your membership ends. We alert you to that. But yeah, we're very, very cognizant of making sure that people can make sure that they get to use the tool. Hopefully that was helpful.
All right.
Good. Anybody else? Any questions before we sign off? Yeah, and this is where too, if it's just questions where obviously, if you have more questions about Gentrio, or estate planning benefits in general, we're happy to help with any of those. So our website is Gentrio, GENTRIO.com. But then my email address I'd put in the chat is rfry at Gentrio.com. And again, Gentrio stands for 3 generations because we know this is something people need to cross their lives. But whether or not you use us, we're always happy to try to help folks get to the right places and make sure that as your employees are going through so much, that we're somewhere that, we're a place people can get help. Great. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you, Renee and Skyler. Lots of valuable information on a complex topic. Any questions that were not able to be answered, or if you have any other questions from today's program, you'll receive a response via email within 5 to 7 business days. The MP HR team is here to help guide your organization on any HR compliance issues. If you'd like to learn more about how we can assist your organization, please visit our website to set up a short 15-minute call. And be sure to join us next week on the same day and time for our webinar on ACA reporting to learn key updates and tips for 2022. Visit our website to register and see the full calendar of upcoming events and available resources. We'll be sending out a recording of today's webinar with the presentation slides this afternoon. Thanks for joining us today and have a terrific day.